My girlfriend hid me from her friends, so I publicly proposed to someone who truly loved me. I never thought the girl who once clung to me like I was her entire world would one day treat me like a secret she was ashamed of. At first, I tried to convince myself it was because Kelly wanted to protect our relationship. She said her friends were shallow, that they wouldn't understand someone like me. I believed her. I believed her so much that when she told me to wait outside the restaurant during her birthday dinner with her friends, I stood there in the cold with a cake in my hands for 2 hours, just to see her smile when she came out. But she never came out. Instead, I watched through the window as she laughed, clinking glasses with Nelson, the man she said was just a family friend. That night, I stood there like a fool until the candles on the cake melted into a waxy mess. Still, I didn't confront her. I swallowed the bitterness, clenching my fists in my pockets, telling myself it was just a misunderstanding. But the lies kept stacking up like bricks around my heart, suffocating any warmth I had left for her. When Kelly introduced me to her coworkers, she called me an old classmate. When we ran into her neighbors, she said I was a friend helping her move. When she posted pictures online, she cropped me out or took selfies angled just enough that I was never seen. I kept making excuses for her. Maybe she just wasn't ready. Maybe she was scared. Maybe if I waited long enough, she would proudly take my hand in front of the whole world. But the truth was simpler and far crueler. She wasn't hiding me to protect me. She was hiding me because I wasn't good enough for the life she was building. It wasn't until Mina entered my life, with her unapologetic laughter and her unwavering hand reaching for mine even when no one was looking, that I realized love wasn't supposed to feel like a shameful secret. The night I stood under the glittering lights of the city, ring box trembling in my pocket, I finally made my choice. And it wasn't Kelly who I was going to kneel for. When I first met Kelly, I was the kind of man who believed love could conquer anything. She was radiant in a way that didn't feel real, like a star that somehow drifted down to earth just for me. Her smile had this way of disarming my better judgment, making me believe that if I just loved her enough, it would be enough for both of us. We met during a volunteer event at a local library. She had been trying to fix a jammed printer, frustration written all over her face when I stepped in and showed her the trick. She laughed, embarrassed, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and thanked me. It wasn't love at first. Sight, not exactly. It was something gentler, something that crept into my life so quietly, I didn't even realize it was happening until it was already too late. At the beginning, Kelly treated me like I was the most important person in her life. She would text me good morning before her eyes were even fully open, would drag me to her favorite cafes, would fall asleep on my shoulder during late-night study sessions. She said she loved my simplicity, how grounded I was. She said I was her peace in a chaotic world. I was working a regular office job back then, nothing glamorous, just enough to pay my rent, buy groceries, and maybe splurge on a dinner date once in a while. Kelly was different. She was ambitious, driven, desperate to make it big in the marketing world. I admired that about her. It didn't bother me at first when she talked about her dreams of climbing social ladders and networking with people far beyond our circle. I thought it was something we could weather together, side by side. When she got her first real job at a big firm, she was ecstatic. We celebrated with takeout on the floor of my tiny apartment, her in my worn-out hoodie, legs draped over mine as we made promises about the future. "You're my home," she whispered that night, half asleep against my chest. I believed her. God. I believed her so much it makes my chest ache to remember it now, but things started to change. Slowly at first, so slow that if you blinked, you could pretend it wasn't happening. She started dressing differently, talking differently, even laughing differently, with this airy lilt that didn't belong to the girl who used to snort uncontrollably whenever I told bad jokes. The first time she hid me was at a corporate event. I had bought a new shirt for the occasion, feeling self-conscious about the fraying cuffs but excited to finally see her world. But when I showed up, Kelly quickly pulled me aside, whispering fiercely that I shouldn't mention we were dating. "They're judgmental," she said. eyes darting nervously around the room. You know how people are. They'll make things harder for me if they think I'm distracted. I smiled and nodded, telling myself it was just one night, one compromise. Love required sacrifices, didn't it? But it wasn't just one night. It became a pattern. Every dinner, every outing, every event where her professional circle might be present, I became invisible. Her friend, her old classmate, sometimes not introduced at all. And every time, it happened. I tucked the sting deeper inside me, building a wall of excuses around it. She loved me, I told myself. That was what mattered. There were moments, of course, when the old Kelly resurfaced, quiet nights where she curled into me like she used to, tracing lazy circles on my palm and mumbling about dreams we once dreamed together. Those moments made it harder to walk away. They made it easy to forget all the nights I stood on the outside looking in, wondering why the woman I loved so much was so desperate to keep me hidden. It all reached a breaking point the night of her birthday. I had planned everything perfectly. A homemade cake, a handwritten card, even a simple silver bracelet she had once admired through a store window but said she couldn't afford. I waited outside the restaurant she picked, too naive to understand the setup. I watched as she laughed with Nelson, clinking glasses, his hand lingering just a little too long on her back. She didn't even look out the window once. I should have left. I should have taken the melted cake, the card, the bracelet, and walked away. But I waited until the restaurant lights dimmed, until the last guest stumbled out laughing, until Kelly finally emerged hours later, flushed and bright, with Nelson still at her side. She didn't even see me standing there in the dark. The cold bit into my skin, but the numbness inside me hurt worse. That was when Mina found me. A friend of a friend, someone I had known distantly through college gatherings but never really talked to. She saw me sitting on a bench outside the restaurant, cake ruined, heart shattered, and without asking a word, she sat down beside me. Mina didn't ask questions. She didn't pry. She just sat there, sharing the silence, offering me her presence, without expectation. That night, for the first time in a long time, I remembered what it felt like to be seen. It didn't happen all at once. I didn't fall out of love with Kelly that night, just like I hadn't fallen in love with her in a single moment. But a crack had formed, and once cracks appear, it's only a matter of time before everything crumbles. Mina's laughter, her stubborn loyalty, her refusal to let me shrink into the background of my own life. These things began to stitch me back together in ways I didn't even realize I was broken. The realization hit me hardest when Kelly posted a picture the next week from another party, one I hadn't been invited to, with Nelson's arm around her shoulders. The caption read, "Grateful for my real friends. Couldn't ask for a better support system." And me? I wasn't even a footnote. That was the night I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep loving someone who was embarrassed to love me back. And maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who would never ask me to hide again. It was supposed to be a simple evening, just dinner at a cozy place Kelly had picked. No events, no corporate friends, no fancy setups. I told myself it was her way of making it up to me for everything she had done lately, the times she had left me outside looking in. I wore the shirt she once said made my eyes look deeper, darker. I even ironed it twice, checked the mirror 3 times just to be sure. I wanted to believe that tonight would be different. The restaurant was a small, intimate one, with dim lighting and quiet music, the kind of place where you didn't need to shout to be heard. I arrived a little early and waited, tapping my fingers on the table, rehearsing the small things I wanted to say. I had even picked a tiny velvet box from my jacket pocket a few times, feeling its weight in my palm, wondering if maybe tonight was the right time to ask her, not for marriage yet, but something smaller, maybe for her to stop hiding me. Kelly was late. 15 minutes, 30, then nearly an hour. I ordered water, then coffee, trying to stay patient. I kept checking my phone, expecting a text that said she was stuck in traffic or running behind. Nothing came. When she finally walked in, Kelly looked breathtaking. Her dress shimmered under the low lights, and every head in the restaurant turned. toward her. But she wasn't alone. Nelson walked in right beside her, laughing about something I couldn't hear, his hand once again far too comfortable at the small of her back. For a moment, she didn't even notice me. She waved at the host, whispering something with a giggle, the kind she used to reserve just for me. When her eyes finally landed on me, a flicker of something crossed her face. Surprise, guilt, something fleeting and ugly that she smothered almost instantly under a bright, fake smile. "William," she said too loudly, as if by acknowledging me she could erase the fact that she hadn't even thought of me until now. "What are you doing here?" The words hit harder than they should have. I was sitting at a table with two menus, a candle burning low between them, and she had the nerve to ask what I was doing here. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Nelson looked from me to her, then back again, something smug curling at the edges of his lips. He didn't say a word, but he didn't have to. Everything was written all over Kelly's face. "This was supposed to be a work dinner," she said after a long, heavy pause. "I didn't think you'd want to come to something so boring." My chest tightened, but I forced a small, stiff smile. "You told me it was just the two of us," she laughed, high and brittle. "Plans changed. Nelson happened to be free, and it just made sense to bring him along. You know how important he is for my career." The way she said it, like I was the unreasonable one for showing up expecting a date, made something inside me finally snap. "See," I said quietly, standing up, leaving the small box unopened on the table. "I hope you two enjoy your dinner." For a second, I thought she might stop me, that she would reach out, grab my hand, beg me to stay, to understand, to not walk away. But Kelly just smiled awkwardly at the other guests staring at us and waved me off like I was a minor inconvenience. I walked out into the cold night, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft thud that felt more final than any goodbye ever could. I didn't go home. My legs carried me without thinking, wandering through the glowing city streets until I found myself standing in front of a small cafe, the one Mina had once said had the best late-night pastries. I hadn't planned to call her. I hadn't even planned to think about her, but somehow my fingers were already dialing her number before I even realized it. Mina answered after just 2 rings. "Will?" Her voice was soft, full of genuine concern, not forced politeness or obligation. I closed my eyes, letting her voice steady me. "Are you free?" I asked, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Always," she said without hesitation. She didn't ask questions. She didn't demand explanations. Within 20 minutes, she was sitting across from me at the cafe, a warm mug between her hands, looking at me like I mattered. Like I wasn't a secret she needed to hide away. I didn't tell her everything that night. Some wounds were still too raw, too ugly to show. But I told her enough. About the birthday cake. About the way Kelly kept hiding me. About Nelson and the dinner that wasn't supposed to include anyone else. Mina listened without interrupting, her eyes never leaving mine. At one point, I felt my voice break, shame and anger and helplessness all tangled in my throat. I looked down, swallowing hard, but Mina just reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "You deserve better, Will," she said quietly, as if it were the simplest truth in the world. Someone who's proud to stand beside you, not someone who treats you like a burden. Her words didn't heal me instantly. They didn't fix the cracks or erase the hurt. But they were a lifeline, pulling me out of the drowning numbness I hadn't even realized I was sinking into. That night, walking her back to her car under the soft glow of the streetlights, I realized something. Love wasn't supposed to make you feel invisible. It was supposed to make you feel seen, and maybe, just maybe, Mina had been seeing me all along. The days after that night felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. I went through the motions of work, answered calls when I had to, smiled when it was expected. But it all felt hollow, like I was walking through a world that no longer had any place for me in it. I kept hearing Kelly's voice in my head, casual, dismissive, brushing me off like an afterthought. I told myself it was better this way. Better to know the truth now than keep living in the fantasy I had clung to for so long. But knowing and accepting were two different battles. Every time my phone buzzed, a part of me still hoped it would be her, saying she had made a mistake, saying she missed me. Even after everything, that stupid, broken part of me still wanted to believe in her, but the messages that came weren't from Kelly. They were from Mina, short, simple things. A photo of a funny coffee mug at a store. A blurry sunset, she said, reminded her of the one we saw years ago on a college trip. A text that just said, "Hope today isn't too hard." She never pressured me to talk, never demanded explanations. She just let me exist, broken pieces and all. Some nights I couldn't sleep. I would lie awake replaying every moment with Kelly, dissecting every word, every glance, every touch, wondering how I could have missed it. Wondering if maybe I had only ever seen what I wanted to see. There were good memories, and they hurt more than the bad ones. The night she snuck over just to bring me soup when I was sick. The time she cried when I surprised her with a homemade birthday cake because she thought I had forgotten. The way she used to look at me like I was her whole world. Were any of those moments real, or had they all been carefully curated pieces of a dream she sold me while she reached for something better behind my back? The uncertainty gnawed at me until I barely recognized myself anymore. I wasn't angry at Kelly. I was angry at myself. Angry for trusting too easily, loving too blindly, believing too fiercely in a future that had only ever existed in my mind. I started avoiding the places we used to go. The little park where we used to eat takeout on the swings. The bookstore where she would drag me through every aisle, pretending she had time to read the dozen books she picked up. The coffee shop where she once kissed me in front of everyone, without a care in the world. Now every corner of the city felt like a graveyard of broken promises. I even avoided Mina sometimes, scared that I would somehow bleed my bitterness onto her too. She deserved more than a man piecing himself back together with shaking hands. But Mina was persistent in the gentlest way. She would leave a coffee on my desk without saying anything, send a song she thought I'd like, invite me to small things, like a movie she knew I had been wanting to watch, or a food festival she thought would cheer me up. Slowly, carefully, she became the rope pulling me out of the quicksand. It wasn't some grand declaration. It wasn't fireworks or a sudden revelation. It was the quiet realization that when I was around Mina, I didn't have to pretend to be okay. I didn't have to shrink myself down to fit someone else's expectations. I could just be. I started laughing again, really laughing, not the polite chuckles I gave my coworkers. I started looking forward to texts, to conversations, to nights spent talking about nothing and everything all at once. But every step forward came with its own weight. The guilt of moving on, the fear of trusting again, and the lingering, bitter voice that whispered, maybe I was only setting myself up for another fall. It wasn't fair to Mina. I knew that. She deserved someone whole, not someone constantly looking over their shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. One night, after a long day, we sat on a park bench watching the lights of the city blur into soft glows in the misty night air. Mina leaned against me, comfortable, unafraid. "You're quiet," she said, her voice barely louder than the wind. Stared out at the river, searching for words I didn't know how to say. "I'm scared," I finally admitted, my voice rough. "Not of you, just of ruining something good again." Mina didn't pull away. She didn't sigh or roll her eyes or tell me to get over it. She just laced her fingers through mine and held on tighter. "William," she said, her tone steady and warm, "you're not broken. You're human. And so am I. We're both carrying scars. Maybe that's what makes this real." I turned to look at her then, really look at her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like I was standing outside my own life. I felt seen, and for once, I wasn't scared of it. As the city lights flickered around us and the future stretched out uncertain and bright and terrifying, I realized something. Maybe love wasn't about finding someone perfect. Maybe it was about finding someone who saw your cracks and chose to stay. Anyway, It happened when I was finally starting to think I could move on. Mina and I had plans to meet after work. Nothing big. Just a quiet dinner at a new place she found. The kind of simple night that somehow felt more valuable than all the extravagant parties Kelly used to drag me to. I had just left the office, the cool evening air cutting through the heat of the day when my phone buzzed. It was Kelly. I froze in the middle of the sidewalk, staring at her name flashing on the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it ring until it stopped, but some old, battered instinct made me answer. "Will," her voice came, rushed and shaky, like she had been crying. "Please, I need to see you." I almost hung up right there, but, against my better judgment, I found myself asking, "Why?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, shallow and uneven. "Please," she said again, barely a whisper. "Just one last time." I should have said no. I should have remembered the nights she left me outside in the cold, the lies, the way she had looked right past me like I was invisible. But curiosity, stubborn and cruel, twisted in my gut. I texted Mina, telling her something had come up, that I'd be late. She responded instantly, no questions asked, just a simple, "Be safe." And with that, I found myself standing outside the ice cafe where Kelly asked to meet, the same one where Mina and I had begun stitching my heart back together. Kelly looked different. Not in the way people change over years, but in the way storms leave marks on houses. She was thinner, her makeup heavier, her smile brittle like glass ready to shatter. When she saw me, her face crumpled, and without warning, she threw her arms around me. "I miss you," she whispered into my chest, her hands clutching the fabric of my jacket like a lifeline. "I made a mistake, Will. I was so stupid. I thought I needed more, but I didn't. I just needed you." I stood there, arms at my sides, numb and unmoving. "Nelson didn't care about me," she said, stepping back, tears running down her face. "He just wanted someone to make him look good. And I let myself believe he was better because he had money, connections, everything I thought I wanted." She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. "Now you're here," she said, desperation coloring her words. "We can start over. I'll do better this time. I swear it will." I wanted to feel angry. I wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was empty. "You didn't even want to be seen with me," I said quietly. "You treated me like something to be hidden away, something shameful. You don't come back from that." Kelly shook her head fiercely. No, that's not true. I was scared. I was stupid. But I love you, Will. I always have." I thought about the countless nights I had waited for her, the times I convinced myself to be patient, the years I spent loving someone who couldn't even say my name out loud in front of her friends. And then I thought about Mina. Her steady presence, her quiet understanding, her hand finding mine without needing to be asked. Kelly must have seen the shift in my expression because her face crumpled even more. "There's someone else," she said, her voice barely audible. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "You can't," she said, her voice rising. "You can't just replace me, Will. We've been through everything together." I met her eyes then, really looked at her for the first time in a long while, and realized the truth. We had been through a lot, yes, but most of it I had gone through alone, waiting, hoping, begging for a place in her life. Kelly wasn't crying for me. She was crying for herself, crying for the loss of convenience, of comfort, of someone who had always been there no matter how badly she treated him. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "But I'm done being hidden. I'm done being a secret." She reached for me one last time, but I stepped back, the space between us feeling wider than any street, any city, any lifetime. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel regret. I felt free. I left Kelly standing there on the sidewalk, her figure trembling under the cold glare of the streetlights. I didn't look back. The walk to Mina's place felt heavier with every step. My mind wasn't racing. It was strangely calm, like the final stillness before a storm breaks. Mina opened the door even before I knocked. Maybe she had been waiting. Maybe she had known. She took one look at my face and simply stepped aside, letting me in without a word. I sank onto her couch, feeling the exhaustion seep into my bones. Mina handed me a cup of tea without asking, settling down across from me, her legs tucked under her. Her silence wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't the kind of silence that demanded explanations. It was the kind of silence that said, "Whenever you're ready, I'm here." "I saw Kelly," I said finally, my voice hoarse. Mina didn't flinch. She just waited. She said she wanted to fix things, that she made a mistake, I continued, staring down into the swirling steam of the cup. For a moment, I almost believed her. I hated admitting it, but Mina didn't look surprised. She just nodded slightly, encouraging me to go on. I realized, "Something's standing there," I said, setting the cup down. I wasn't mourning Kelly. I was mourning the man I used to be. The one who believed that love could fix anything if you just held on tight enough. Mina's gaze softened, her hands folding quietly in her lap. "I don't want to be that man anymore," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. "I don't want to keep choosing people who only love me when it's convenient. I want more. I deserve more." Mina shifted forward, her expression open and unguarded. "You do," she said simply. "You always have." The lump in my throat grew too big to swallow. For a moment, all I could do was look at her. Really look at her, and wonder how I had been so blind all along. "I'm scared," I whispered. "I know," Mina said. I laughed wetly, scrubbing a hand through my hair. "I'm not very good at this, at moving on, at trusting again." "You don't have to be good at it," she said gently. "You just have to be willing to try." It was such a simple thing to say, but it cracked something open inside me. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting the tears I didn't know I had been holding fall silently down the sides of my face. Mina didn't rush me. She didn't demand I stop crying, didn't try to tell me everything was okay. She just stayed there, steady and patient, the way real love was supposed to be. After a long while, I sat up, wiping my face with the back of my hand. Mina smiled, small but real, and nudged a small box across the coffee table toward me. I blinked, confused. "It's nothing fancy," she said, a little shy now. "Just something I saw and thought of you." I opened the box slowly, my fingers clumsy. Inside was a simple keychain shaped like a little compass. "So you never feel lost again," Mina said quietly. I didn't even realize I was crying again until she reached out and squeezed my hand. In that moment, all the noise, all the hurt, all the scars Kelly had left behind faded into something small and distant. Because sitting right here, right now, with Mina's hand in mine, I understood something so clearly it felt like it was being carved into my bones. Love wasn't supposed to hurt like that. It wasn't supposed to make you feel like you had to prove your worth every single day just to be tolerated. Real love saw you, stayed with you, chose you, without hesitation, without shame, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, I didn't feel like I was crawling towards something better. I felt like I had already found it. The next morning, I woke up with a new kind of determination pulsing through me. I wasn't going to waste another second living half a life, waiting for someone else's approval. I went home and pulled out everything that still tied me to Kelly, the photos, the gifts, the memories I had been clinging to like a fool, and I packed them away. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but because I no longer needed them. That night, Mina and I went out to a quiet rooftop overlooking the city, the stars barely visible through the haze. I didn't have a grand plan. I didn't have a rehearsed speech. All I had was a simple truth burning inside me, so bright it pushed out every lingering shadow. I took Mina's hand, feeling it fit perfectly in mine, and dropped to one knee right there under the faded starlight. Her, eyes widened, her free hand flying to her mouth in shock. "I know it's soon," I said, my voice shaking. "I know we've both been hurt, and maybe we're both a little broken. But Mina, if there's one thing I'm sure of in this whole world, it's you." I pulled out the small ring I had bought. Earlier that day, a simple band with a tiny shining stone. Not because it was flashy or impressive, but because it was real. Just like her. Just like us. "I want to build something better," I said, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear my own words. "Something honest, something strong, something that sees all the cracks and still stands anyway. With you." Mina's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling so brightly it lit up the whole rooftop. She nodded, too choked up to speak, and I slipped the ring onto her shaking finger. When she finally found her voice, it was broken and beautiful all at once. "Yes, Will," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." I stood up, pulling her into my arms as the city buzzed around us, oblivious to the tiny miracle happening above its streets. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid of the future anymore. I was ready to run straight toward it, hand in hand with someone who had chosen me from the very start. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that the best kinds of love don't come crashing in with fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes they arrive softly, in the form of a girl who brings you coffee when you're too broken to ask, in the quiet moments where two wounded hearts find a way to heal together. In the steady promise that no matter what comes next, you will never have to face it alone again. The news of my engagement to Mina spread faster than I ever could have imagined, not because I was a celebrity or someone the tabloids cared about, but because Kelly made sure everyone knew. A week after, Mina and I made our announcement to our families. I received a message from an unknown number. A single photo. Kelly, sitting alone in a coffee shop, head bowed over a phone, looking more lost than I had ever seen her. At first, I thought it was some cruel joke, some last attempt to pull at my heartstrings, to remind me of the girl I used to love. But I didn't reply. I didn't even save the number. I deleted the photo and moved on with my day. Mina and I were finalizing plans for a small engagement party. Nothing extravagant, just close friends and family, people who had stood beside us when everything else had fallen apart. The night before the party, Mina hesitated as she hung up the phone with the caterer. "There's something you should know," she said softly. Kelly had reached out to her, tried to meet her privately, tried to warn her about me, tried to plant doubts in her mind the way a desperate person clutches at any weapon they can find when they know they've already lost. Mina had listened calmly to everything Kelly said, and then she had smiled, thanked her for her concern, and hung up without giving her a single opening to wedge herself between us. When Mina told me, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel hatred. I felt pity. Kelly wasn't fighting for love. She was fighting to salvage her pride, to scrape back some tiny piece of the power she had once held over me. But that power was long gone. I had taken it back the moment I chose Mina. The day of the engagement party dawned bright and clear. Mina wore a soft pink dress that fluttered around her knees like petals. I couldn't stop staring at her. She glowed from the inside out, a quiet, steady light that made everything else in the world seem dimmer by comparison. I stood at the entrance of the small rooftop venue, greeting friends, smiling easily, laughing genuinely for the first time in what felt like years. And then Kelly appeared. She wasn't invited. She wasn't even supposed to know where it was being held. But there she was, standing at the edge of the gathering, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. There was no triumph in her gaze, no confidence, only a desperate, burning regret. I turned to Mina, who had just noticed her too. Mina gave me a small nod, telling me silently, "It's your call." I excused myself and walked toward Kelly. Each step felt like the closing of a chapter I should have ended long ago. When I reached her, she opened her mouth, ready to spill whatever last plea she had rehearsed. but I spoke first. "You're not welcome here, Kelly," I said, my voice calm, unwavering. "This isn't your place anymore." She flinched, as if my words physically struck her. "I just wanted to talk," she whispered. "To explain." I shook my head slowly. "There's nothing left to explain." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. I made a mistake. I see that now. I should have chosen you from the beginning." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No, Kelly. You chose exactly who you were, over and over again. I was just too blind to see it." She reached out, but I stepped back. Behind me, Mina had quietly approached, slipping her hand into mine. Her presence grounded me, reminded me of everything I had built since letting go of Kelly. "You should go," I said simply, "before you make a bigger fool of yourself." For a moment, Kelly just stood there, trembling with emotion she could no longer control. And then, without another word, she turned and fled. I didn't watch her go. I didn't need to. I already knew what her future looked like, haunted by what she had lost, what she had thrown away without even realizing its worth. Mina squeezed my hand, and I turned back to the people who truly mattered. The party was beautiful, not because of the decorations or the food or the music, but because every single person there loved us, believed in us, stood with us without hesitation. Toward the end of the night, I found myself standing alone on the rooftop balcony, staring out over the glowing city. Mina joined me, slipping her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You okay?" she murmured. I nodded, turning to kiss her forehead. "Better than okay." She smiled against my skin. "You know, if someone had told me years ago that love could feel like this, I don't think I would have believed them." "Neither would I said softly. We stood there for a long time, just breathing in the night, letting the past finally fall away for good. Later, when Mina fell asleep beside me, I checked my phone one last time. There was a final message from Kelly. It was short. No apologies, no pleas, just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. And then, without a second thought, I deleted it. No anger, no hatred, just peace. The kind of peace that comes from surviving something that once threatened to break you and coming out stronger, brighter, freer. As I held Mina close, feeling her heartbeat steady against mine, I made a silent promise. I would never let anyone make me feel small again. I would never let anyone hide me away like I was something to be ashamed of. And I would spend every day proving, not just to Mina, but to myself, that real love didn't diminish you. It made you more. More brave, more whole, more alive. Somewhere out there, Kelly would spend the rest of her life chasing after the love she had thrown away. But me? I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I had already found it. And this time, it was mine to keep. Ooh. Description: I loved her so much I let her hide me from the world, thinking one day she'd be proud to stand beside me. But when she chose her image over our love, I realized I was never part of her dream. I walked away and found someone who never asked me to shrink. In the end, I proposed to the woman who saw my worth when no one else did. Real love doesn't hide you, it holds you. Drama story, just heartbreak to healing. True love wins. Betrayal and redemption. Moving on stronger tags love betrayal story. Emotional breakup story. Hidden relationship drama. Real love wins. Heartbreak to healing. Revenge love story. Emotional love journey. Girlfriend betrayal story. Public proposal drama. Emotional redemption story. Painful love story. Moving on. From betrayal. Healing after heartbreak. True love found. Relationship betrayal drama. Breakup and revenge. Emotional closure story. Love after betrayal. Finding real happiness. Dramatic love story.